Ed Bernstein Show. Now, here's Ed.
It's going to be one of the most important elections of our forever. And with me to talk about what she's done and what she's going to do is Congresswoman Susie Lee.
Great to be with you, Ed.
Great to be with you. I mean, you're considered one of the hardest working Congress people. And I know, you got your hand in everything, whether it's the environment, whether it's the economy, local traffic, high-speed trains.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very
so
exciting.
when you look at Las Vegas, I mean, you've been what, 3 terms now, or
correct? This is my third term
in Congress, and it's becoming obviously harder to get anything done. But then you look around town in Las Vegas, and we're all complaining about the orange cones, about the traffic, about the delays, but it's a good thing, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, we are an economy that's based on tourism. It's based on moving people in and out of our city. The bipartisan infrastructure law was incredible for our state. We've already seen investment, obviously $3 billion for the Bright Line high-speed rail. First of its kind in America. This will be an innovation that will transform transportation across this country. It's starting right here in Las Vegas. All the work you see on the roads, airports, we can thank the bipartisan infrastructure bill for that.
So I noticed the other day, Pete Buttigieg, who's the transportation secretary, was in town with you.
Yes.
Talking about this Bright Line deal. Now, look, I've lived here almost 50 years. The first day I moved to Las Vegas in the 70s, people were talking about, we need to get a train from Vegas to LA. So I guess, we broke ground. I really don't know what that means. But, and quite honestly, I don't even know if I believe that it will come to be. Maybe you can reassure me.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Bright Line has already been successful in developing a train line between Miami and Orlando. What's really interesting about this investment and the plans for it is they plan on using the median on I-15. So it eliminates the whole step of environmental permitting, land, et cetera, that would traditionally accompany building a whole separate train line. So they have that on their side.
So you don't have to acquire land privately?
They're going right down the median.
No eminent domain.
Right, and this was the negotiation. First of all, there have been many leaders in our community that have been proponents of this line for years and years. There's been starts and stops, and eventually this needed government investment. And with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that $3 billion is sort of what put it over the edge, on top of tax credits as well for bonding that will help with additional funding for this. And this is, to me, such a perfect example of one, the type of investment that government should be doing, and two, public-private partnerships. And this, I believe, is a win-win for our community. Not only is it fast, reliable, high-speed rail, it is clean. It'll take 3 million cars off the road, off of I-15, and anyone who has traveled that road on a Friday or a Sunday, as the Secretary of Transportation said, that there's been no road across the country that has been described as a parking lot more than I-15. And any of us have had those experiences where a 4-hour drive could take up to 8 hours. With the Bright Line, it will be a 2-hour trip.
Everything you said is so true, but beyond that, I mean, it's almost, going to be a lifeline for Las Vegas, for tourism, because you started talking about Fridays and Sundays, but it's not only Friday and Sunday, it's every day. It used to be, you get in your car, and, as long as it wasn't a certain time on a Friday and Sunday, and you drove to LA and it was a 4-hour trip. You can't go there without, frustrating traffic the whole way.
Right.
You can't fly anymore without the frustration of delays and people and crowds and everything else that involves the airlines. We need this in Las Vegas in order to survive.
Absolutely, and it's, you know, when you think about it, it's not just about transporting people who are coming here to enjoy our world-class entertainment and gaming and hotels. It's also, it's going to relieve the congestion on I-15 that's also used by freight companies and trucks and movement of goods across the country. And so it'll alleviate that congestion, which will open up supply chains as well. So I think that the benefits of this, there are additional benefits that we can't even imagine what they are, but I believe this is a win-win for our community and for California. And I will say it's an example of us working together, and we need to do a little bit more of regional planning when it comes to whether it's infrastructure and obviously water being a big issue for us as well.
So how does that work? I mean, obviously we needed some federal funds. So we have it goes through your congressional district. It goes through some California congressional districts. So then you give those Congress people a call and say, hey, this is what we'd like to do. We'd like your support and get you on board. And I guess you were successful at it.
Absolutely, and I have to point out to the leaderships of Senator Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto, of course, and our whole delegation working together to get this accomplished. And by the way, a special shout out to the Nevada Department of Transportation, because you have to remember that we approved this funding under the bipartisan infrastructure law, but you have to win. It was a competitive bid. And so the Nevada Department of Transportation had all of their ducks in a row and were able to work collaboratively with the California Department of Transportation. So this was just, an all-around huge team effort to get this accomplished.
The one thing I don't understand about it is where the station is. I mean, it's off of Blue Diamond, I guess, in Vegas, but I'm talking about on the other side, because it's not really in L.A.
It's in Rancho Cucamonga.
Which is, 40, 50 miles away out of L.A. So do you anticipate eventually that it will connect into L.A.?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Right now, the plan is you get off at Rancho Cucamonga.
Right.
You can take a line into Union Station, but the goal is eventually that it would go directly to Union Station.
Change trains, get into Union Station.
Yeah.
And you said it's what, 2 hour or 2 hours?
2 hour drive, yeah, or 2 hour trip. Yep.
So half the time.
Half the time, and you're sitting there enjoying state-of-the-art train rides. So
finally going to compete with Europe on some of these trains, right?
I mean, many people who have traveled, whether you're in Japan or Europe, have always wondered why the United States can't have that type of train system. And, you get what you pay for. And so ultimately, I believe this is the beginning. Brightline West has plans to do this type of, city-to-city rail, maybe between Houston and Dallas, picking out key corridors that they can really show that this type of rail works, and hopefully eventually we can connect it all.
Is it difficult? I mean, look, obviously there's been a lot of wonderful projects that have come our way. A lot of them you've had your hands in. And when you try to get that message out, particularly in a year like this, when you have, Donald Trump, in and out of court all the time, people, really focusing on age of I mean, it seems like people are focusing on everything except some of the good things that are really happening.
Yeah, listen, I mean, let's just talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. This was an incredibly important bill, especially for the state of Nevada. It was the largest investment in climate change in history. And what's it mean for our state? We've already seen $12 billion of direct investment into our state, the creation of 16,000 jobs. But I'm going to just tell you the story of one company that I believe sort of embodies the importance of this bill. And the name of the company is called Unimax. They built a manufacturing plant literally in the shadow of the Strip. This is a plant that, quite honestly, picked up their manufacturing equipment out of Mexico and moved it right to Las Vegas. It employs 200 people, and they produce the rod. You know how the rod that solar panels rotate on?
Right.
That's what they produce. They produce it right here. The guy who runs the plant says he's been in manufacturing for 40 years, and this is the first time in his entire career, he's lived all over the country, that he's actually moved operations into the country he's living in. Think about this. Everyone talked about how we're, exporting jobs to Mexico. Now we're importing jobs because of that type of investment in the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is on top of all of the benefits, prescription drug benefits as well, capping insulin at $35 a month. Not only was that a benefit to Medicare recipients, which is what it was originally passed as, following the passage of that and the reduction of that, the insulin manufacturers have now said, you know what, we're going to do that for everyone. Oh. And that's exactly the type of trickle down that we want to see, allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. 25 of the most commonly used drugs will now have negotiations next year. And you're going to see that effect where the largest buyer of prescription drugs is now able to use that buying power to negotiate a reduction in costs. Hopefully we'll see that same type of impact across the board, so it will impact anyone who purchases prescription drugs. $2,000 out-of-pocket cap for prescription expenses for seniors. I mean, these are important accomplishments of the Biden administration.
And they've been going on so long.
Yes.
I mean, when I was in politics 24 years ago, the issue was the cost of prescription drugs. And at that time, that was the conversation. Why can't Medicare negotiate with the drug company and get the price lower? What was the problem?
I'm just going to say the influence of Big Pharma. As you know, how much money they spent lobbying, and many of the leaders basically clamoring to support them. And this was a case where Americans have stood up and said enough is enough. I mean, we are the wealthiest nation on the planet, but yet we pay 4 or 5 times more for our health care costs and prescription drugs. Something has got to give. And this is one was written into the law that prohibited this practice, and it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. You should be able to negotiate prescription drugs and have transparency as well.
You were talking about the solar company that made the rods, because the solar panels rotate or move to follow the sun, right? Yep. To maximize the amount of solar energy that they're getting. And look, we all know that Nevada is like the perfect place to have a lot of solar, right? But at the same time, you open up the newspaper and you see there's some flaky solar companies, that so as a consumer, you're kind of like, well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to get the solar. I live here in southern Nevada. It's sunny 330 days a year. But, how do I know I'm not going to get, ripped off by the wrong solar company? Yeah.
My advice, and first of all, I welcome anyone who has questions about that to call my office, 702-963-9336. This is a practice that we're hearing about quite often. I guess the basic tenet is if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And many of these companies will come in and say, we'll take care of everything, but then you sign away certain rights, et cetera. So be careful. Don't sign any documents. Don't agree to anything over the phone. Make sure you have someone who is reputable in that space to take a look at it. I will say, exciting announcement. Yesterday, we announced $156 million coming to our state that will be available for low-income Nevadans to access renewable energy options. And so, again, I tell people to go to my office, and we can direct them on how to apply for those for that money.
So that money would provide, if you wanted to switch to solar,
yes,
and you're in a certain category financially.
Yes, and also under the Inflation Reduction Act, we already provide tax incentives. It's income based, and Nevada Energy is running a program where low-income people can switch out their inefficient appliances and purchase more energy-efficient appliances and receive tax credits, receive support for the purchase of that. So, again, all that information will be on my website. I encourage people to go and check it out.
The other thing that you're really working hard on is water here in Southern Nevada, which is ultimately our #1 issue. Right, we can't survive without adequate water.
Water is life.
Yep, and I know that we have replaced a lot of our grass with artificial turf at home, and the water department's right on top of it, I'll tell you.
Well, listen, this is an area where Las Vegas leads the country, and with respect to water conservation, the majority of our water that is used residentially is reused. Programs, the Water Smart programs, which is funded through federal government, giving rebates for people to switch to artificial grass or desert landscaping. All that comes through that type of federal funding. Listen, we are in the worst drought in 12 centuries in the Southwest. The Colorado River, as you know, is the source of water for 7 states, 7 of the basin states. And the allocation of water from the Colorado River since the inception, it's really generally been oversubscribed. But then you put in, on top of that, a drought, and that's why you're seeing the intense pressure on the Colorado River. We have until the 6 basin states of the lower basin have until 2026 to renegotiate their agreements on who gets to pull certain, acre feet from the Colorado River. And you got to remember, Nevada has the least amount, but we're also upstream. And so it's important for us to continue to exercise our leadership, which we have done. I'm proud of a bill I passed, the Large-Scale Water Recycling Act. This is a bill that was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. What this is an innovative partnership between Las Vegas Valley Water District and LA Metro. Basically my bill raised the limit where the federal government can invest in a type of program, and Southern Nevada Water Authority will invest in the LA Metro construction of their plant. They recycle their water. It keeps, for our investment, we get to keep up to enough water for 500,000 homes. So, so many people call me and say, why don't we build a desalination plant, on the ocean in LA and build a pipe to pipe it back? And it's like, why don't we just keep the water in Lake Mead and provide support for LA to do that type of innovative project, which is exactly what my bill allows for. So those types of things, we still, I think all states are going to have to take a cut, and I hope that we can all come together and collectively reach consensus. I'm afraid that if that doesn't happen, there's going to be an across-the-board mandatory cut. And so I'm hoping that states will realize they're all better off if we come to a consensus first.
You kind of surprised me when you're being in Congress, because when I think about you as like an educational person. Like your background is all in education. You did all these great things in education before you got in politics.
Yep.
So I assume you go into politics and you work on the educational issues. But here you're talking about water, economy, infrastructure. Was that a conscious change on your part?
I think that my going into politics was the result of my experience with nonprofits. As you know, I ran a homeless center and the After School All-Stars in communities and schools. And each one of those programs really focused on the impact of poverty, quite honestly. And so that was sort of the motivation for me to run, because if you're going to impact people's lives, whether you're talking about affordable housing, affordable childcare, increasing the minimum wage to livable minimum wage, or paid family leave, a lot of those policies come out of Washington. And so I ended up having the great opportunity of being on the Appropriations Committee. This is one of the most powerful committees in the House, and very important for Nevada because we are a state that over 80% of our land is federally controlled. We have a huge national security presence with Fallon and Creech, and of course Nellis Air Force Base and our National Guard. And of course our place in the Southwest economy. So it was important for me to get a position on that committee. And as a result of that, I've ended up on the Energy and Water Subcommittee. So that's sort of, just the progression. It doesn't mean that I'm still not focused on education and making sure we're doing everything to invest in families and invest in our education system. But just the nature of where I sit, I think that it's an important committee because I was drawn by the fact, and I still continue to fight this, that Nevadans in taxes send more to Washington than we get invested in our state.
Is that still true?
We're improving. We're doing a lot within the state, not just trying to get federal investments, but it's also making our state more competitive, because a lot of these grants are competitive grants. Like, there's money out there, you just have to get it. And so the governor, from Governor Sandoval to Sisolak and now with Lombardo, they have really focused on how do we break down silos at the state government and make things more competitive so we can win these grants. But also, how do we get the funding into our state that we need? And so I've been really proud that I've been able to secure $3.7 billion of investments through grants and federal programs into our state.
Wonderful work. I mean, there's so many good things going on, and but quite honestly, when I'm walking around town, I hear two complaints. One is the, hey, I can't afford to buy a house.
Yes.
Right. And the other one is, it's so expensive to go to the supermarket anymore.
Yes.
And I don't know. Is there anything? I mean, is that a congressional?
Well, listen, I mean, it's all interrelated, and I will say that, first of all, we have, I believe, and I think by most measures, our economy in Southern Nevada is doing well.
Sure.
But families are certainly feeling the pinch at the grocery store, in the housing market. What can Washington do? I mean, first of all, we did pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which has made $1 billion available. We've already seen investments helping people afford homes. 500 Nevadans received $15,000, obviously based on need, support to get a mortgage. We're seeing the construction of more and more affordable housing units. There's some going up at the corner of Pebble and Eastern, some at Cactus and Buffalo. These are senior, low-income apartment buildings. And so, this is sort of a long runway to deal with the problem. It's not just, one, housing's not affordable because we have a deficit of 84,000 units. So what are we doing from the federal government to provide tax credits and investments to get those houses built? I also have a bill, the ACE Act, which is a bill to break down barriers and red tape. And so right now, as you know, we have a lot of federal land. Releasing that federal land, we call it disposing of it so it can be used for development, one of the big complaints I hear from developers is it takes years and years and years to do that. And so how are we going to streamline that process? One, just make sure we're, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but also make sure we're eliminating some of the red tape. So my bill is really a simple fix. Appraisers, right now, you can only appraise within the state that you're licensed. And so if we have this abundance of federal land, but we don't have this abundance of appraisers who are qualified to do it, so there's a backlog. So under my bill, you can be licensed across state lines. And so now appraisers from Utah, Arizona, California can come help appraise that land. Very proud that Governor Lombardo, in a bipartisan move, endorsed my bill. It's a bipartisan bill, and so we're hoping to get that over the finish line just to tear down red tape where we can get some more land available for development.
When you use that word bipartisan, I mean, you and Senator Rosen have reputations for getting things done in a bipartisan way. We only got 30 seconds left. But what is the secret in Congress, as difficult as it is now, to make something happen in a bipartisan way?
Oh, it's relationships and to try. You can't solve problems with people if you don't have a relationship. It's easy to attack people on Twitter, but really the hard work starts when you sit down and say, where is it that we agree, instead of starting from where are our red lines? Because if you start with your red lines, you never get anywhere. So let's start on where are the areas that we have common beliefs and interests, and let's start with that and build from there out.
That's a good policy. Congresswoman Susie Lee, thank you.
All right, thanks.